Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast. And we are in full effect in the studios here. As y'all know what's happening all the time. You see me, you're usually seeing me over here. But over here is a part of a bigger community. The bigger community encompasses you may call it 12th Street, 1, 2. You may think it's Linwood. You may think it's Davidson. You may think that it's 14th. I don't know why people would even think that, but because you should be representing 12th. Linwood, and also I'm gonna say Dexter, Oakman, like this whole square over here. You know what I'm saying? This is Hope Village. Hope Village is what do they call it? A CDC, Community Development Corporation. I'm actually on the board of it, but who cares what the boxes and the labels of what it is? It's the work connected to it, but more so the work connected to the people. And in the people and the initiatives of Hope Village are many things, but one of the key things is bringing healthier lifestyles and choices for people inside of my community. Who leads that? It's a young lady with me today. Adrienne, how are you today?
Hey, peace. What up, though? How are you today?
All is well, all is well. So how are you feeling more so?
Most excellent. It's a little cold outside, so, I appreciate the cold air, though, because it helps the immune system a little bit, so I get a little happy when it gets cold outside.
I didn't know that cold air helps the immune system, but you learn something every day from health advocacy people. You know what I'm saying? All right, so basically people in Antarctica, Matthew Henson was just like, no vitamin D deficiency in that guy.
Oh, well, when we get into the vitamin D, the sunlight, that's totally different, right? I said the cold air, the cold. We absolutely need some vitamin D.
I feel that. But no, I'm saying like if he out there in the cold in Antarctica and all of that stuff, I mean, when I think Eskimos, I'm thinking Matthew Henson, but
Right.
but more so, I'm just throwing that out there.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I like it.
So with it, let's talk a little bit about this role in Hope Village. We're going to get into that, but more so just your passion for health and so much of this, your Detroit story and your connection to this community and community work. What led you to something like this?
I was born into it. So I grew up on the North End here in Detroit.
Okay, whereabouts?
And I'm gonna say right around the corner from Northern.
Okay.
High School. Yeah.
All right. We got mad love for Northern. We also got love for everything Little Rock has done over there, but we also really love here in Detroit is Different. Dolores Bennett. Shout out always, rest in peace, Miss Dolores Bennett. But the North End is always a friend of this community.
All right, I'll tell you how it actually got started from there. So Arknatunes, Helpful Store Restaurant right outside.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
You talked about the best place for dressing
Yeah.
that no longer exists in all of any dressing I've ever had. Man, bring back Arknatunes.
But we still
Man.
talking about it, right?
You
And
got that
so
right.
A seed was planted when I was a little girl. I went in there, began to understand. I used to love the big plants. You walk in, see those beautiful plants up front. It had like this just aroma to it that just smelled so good every time. So I love going in. But the people there, now mind you, I'm about 4 or 5 years old, so I don't necessarily remember faces, but I remember my experience and the supplements that they had there and learning about them as a little girl. And I didn't know that I would grow up and to be this woman that loves health and wellness. And so that's where it started. My family gave me the tools and resources needed to hone in on what does this plant do? What's that do? So I was an outdoors child, in the 80s everybody was, but bee stings. My grandmother would go get this little plant right here, look like this, bring it back, break it open, and put it on a bug bite. So that intrigued me that everything that we need is right here in nature and so or outdoors to help us. So I just began to build and build and build from there, but it started at Arknatunes for sure.
All right, so you definitely touching my soul. Arknatunes has been brought up many a times, and Detroit is different when we talk about Detroit culture. For people to know a better idea of what it is, it's how do I explain what it is? Like, it's a soul food, healthy living, like extremely like African-centered restaurant that was on Woodward, right in the heart of the North End. Like, so like Highland Park is like right here, and like right there is like Akhenaten Tombs almost.
Yeah.
And it would have some of the most eclectic feels too, because, you know, like a lot of those like classic North End restaurants, so like Mr.
Oh, I
Fofo's
love
and even
Fofos.
you know, like the Turkey Grill still stands to this day. Like you would see like some of the hardest street gangsters in
Yep.
Akhenaten
Yep.
Tombs. You will also see like the African Center community. You see the Nation of Islam. You see some of the Moorish brothers. You would see, you know, just regular women leaving the salon. Like it was such an eclectic blend of Detroit culture that was in there too. That's what made that experience so different. Then it'd be brothers in the back, like, you know, you go in like a lot of places at one point in time, it'd be like bootleg tapes and
Right.
CDs. It was like brothers selling like every Malcolm X speech that you could think of, and like different information. Like, hey brother, you got that Dr. Ben? And it's like, oh man, I ain't got no Dr. Ben. But like if you want Dr. Ben speeches,
Yeah.
you know, we're thinking Francis Cress Welsing and Amos Wilson, like all of their speeches that on cassette tape, on DVD, and at the time, you know, even back to VHS, like this space with like plants and vitamins, and here we go,
Very sacred.
incense and scones for people that know what scones are. Like all of this is going on like right in the heart of the hood, and like everybody from the hood would engage with this space.
Yep. Yep. We knew more about ourselves at that time. We didn't have so many distractions, I would say. And now we have so many tools and technology that keep us away from being well, but those that also promote wellness also. So I'm not just excluding that everything is gone, but there was a time when we really only had to focus on ourselves, the wellness of our community, taking care of others. You know, we had the natural remedies going on, family door to door. You know, if someone gets a cold, go get this from grandma down the street. Just for an example, growing up on the North End, I live with my parents about 4 houses down from my grandmother. And so my family was right there. Everybody's on the same block. And so no matter what was going on, we always knew what was going on. So if one person got a cold, pretty much everybody got a cold. So the remedy was on. Grandma had the hot toddies going. We would go get certain herbs from her garden to use. So I got the gardening piece also. So even though Akhenaten is where it started, I was the youngest girl in the house at the time. All my cousins and my siblings were older. They were at Loving Elementary School. They were at Northern. I did Head Start and preschool at Loving also. And so I would get out for a half a day, come home, and do all the things with grandma. I was learning. So all my health and wellness came from that also. But my grandmother was a diabetic. May she rest in peace now. My grandmother lived to be 90 years old. And throughout that time, I recall from about the 90s up until 2021, my grandmother lived with diabetes. And that was on one side. And then I had another grandmother who actually took insulin shots, living with diabetes also, an extended grandmother. But we travel, and she'd have to have her insulin ready. And so all these things that I've seen the adults around me go through put me here. I want to be well. When I learned about, pre-diabetes, I didn't want that. I love sugar. Okay, let's be clear. As they'll say, parasites in the gut. The parasites in my gut love a good cup of ice cream. Blue Moon, I love me some Superman ice cream. So I used to eat all these things. At a time, I used to have me a double fish fillet sandwich. I used to really supersize my meals and things like that. But over time, I was brought back to my foundation of eating to live, eating off the land. What did grandma have to avoid, her sugar being too high or too low? So learning those things along the way have built me up to where I am now. And diabetes has been the biggest problem that I've seen in my family that's been spoken about. So here I am fighting against diabetes too.
All right, so let's explore more of this, because we usually start the roots with that story, and you've already driven down there, and I wanted to kind of start differently.
Sorry.
Your people, whereabouts? Where do they come from? How many generations deep are you a Detroiter?
Oh, a great question. So I am and I don't like this term, but I am a first generation city girl. Literally, my family comes from the country.
Okay.
And
All right,
so
break it down. Whereabouts?
on my mom's side, we come from Zanesville, Ohio.
Zanesville, Ohio. Whereabouts is
Zanesville.
that?
Oh my God, it's a little mountain town. You're driving through. I don't even know the road that you would take there, but let's say, for example, you're going to Columbus. Use my technology. If you were driving through going to Columbus, it's about 4 hours east. Just
4 hours east of Columbus. So it's like about 4. All right, first off, if people don't know, Ohio's a huge state. Like, it looks kind of small on the map and everything, like when we look at the United States, but Ohio is huge. So 4 hours east. So basically, it's almost like between Columbus and Pittsburgh, it seems like.
Yes.
And possibly.
Yes, right before Wheeling. So we are 4 hours and 2 minutes away from Zanesville, Ohio. Uh, they came there from Pennsylvania, though. And then we come up from Alabama, from Abbeville.
Okay. So in that journey, Ohio and that mountain town, what was the work? What led you guys there?
My grandfather is a military man. He was led there definitely to get away from some of the atrocities that were brought against blacks at that time. I don't know that Ohio was much better than Pennsylvania. However, that's where they landed. And so definitely coming up from Alabama, though, my grandmother, my grandfather, such a strong couple, two individuals. A man was hung not far from where they were living at
In Alabama?
In Alabama, yeah. And they had all boys. And they had to get up out of there. Well, they
Okay.
have two girls too, but at the time, my grandmother and my granddad did not want their sons to perish. And so the thing that saved them was moving north.
All right. And the reason I asked that Pennsylvania, as people know, migration patterns
Right.
have a lot of people from Alabama and Georgia in the Detroit area. That's why I asked, like, Ohio, Pennsylvania, what was the connection?
Yeah. It goes back a little bit also from there. So my mom and my dad, met working downtown. That's how I came to be. But my mom lived in Inkster, my dad lived in Detroit, and my mom had a job downtown. They met, I don't know how many years after they met, about 7 years after I came along.
Okay.
And so understanding that I am an indigenous American woman, that plays a big role in some of the diseases that I've been predisposed to genetically. And so I'm happy that they came to be, but looking back further, I come from farmers. I come from medicine women that understand the land, understand that herbs are used for everything, that the food that we consume, that we grow or grew at that time was meant to nourish and provide for our families.
So, but, and I'm just like more so in the place and the spacing of, like, I'm always big in like what leads people here from there and all of that. So I guess in that journey to Detroit from Ohio, it was like, did somebody get a job? Was it like better opportunity? The thought process was a friend up here already.
They moved together, actually. So I have a very, very amazing family. When they moved from Ohio, as people transition onto the ancestral realm, we begin to hear stories that weren't necessarily told. And they moved up here from Ohio for a better life. I had a granddad, extended grandpa, who he was a mechanic. And so to go back a little bit further, my grandmother moved up here with her best friend.
So family was already here.
But they came together, though.
So everybody came.
Everybody came.
So
Granddad got the
everybody-
job.
Okay.
Everybody came. But there was still a portion that stayed in Ohio, right?
Okay.
So there's family here, there's family there. But the family that came here, my grandmother's best friend and her husband. And so Yeah, that's how they got here.
All right. So with that, like coming in like that deep, do you know why the North End?
They moved to Inkster first, and
Okay,
so
so they settled in Inkster, and that's interesting because Inkster, like I often tell people, like Inkster, River Rouge, really even Southwest Detroit, those were some of the last, I guess you would say, like places where Black folks were settling when they came. So like a lot of Black folks that were coming to Detroit in the, I would say maybe like the 70s and the 80s, would settle in those pockets.
yeah. But see, my family on from Alabama, they actually settled here. They came here and they were living on Black Bottom.
And that would make sense because they were here already. And when did they make so they made the migration trip years ago. So family was already, so some of the family said, hey, I'm going to go over here to see what's up in Ohio. And then everybody was like, I'm going to Detroit. So some family was already here that existed.
Family from Alabama came to Detroit. Family from Ohio went to Inkster.
Okay. Okay. All right. So there we go. All right. That makes sense because it's like the chances of meeting somebody that's Black in Detroit and they roots go to Alabama or Georgia. I would go as far as saying like, from doing these interviews and then talking to people, you would, if you had to be a betting person, put your money up on those two places.
Right. All right.
So with that and those same type of roots. So the Detroit family over in the North End, what moves them to that North End neighborhood? What was the connection?
I don't necessarily have the answer to that. They probably just needed a bigger house.
I got you.
My grandma, so my grandma got kids, adult children now. So 7 boys. So definitely, I'm sure it was space.
So 7 boys, a lot of uncles.
Yes.
Okay, I can only imagine what that was like.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And it still is.
All right. And
Yep.
that's a lot of that energy, like uncle energy is different, especially for a niece.
Yeah.
Your parents and what was their work? What were they doing? What was that connection?
I love my parents. My parents married before I was born, which is pretty dope. A lot of times within the Black community, within the minority community, what are we calling it here? What are we doing? I go indigenous, right, all the time, but for the purpose of society in the Black community, you don't find many households that come with spouses. So I had the advantage of growing up being loved by both of my parents under one roof.
That's dope.
Yeah, they're adults. They went through things. And so now that I'm an adult myself, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense, But having my parents as my parents, I wouldn't have it any other way. Very, very creative people. They birthed a creative daughter. And so I'll give you a good story. So with the health and wellness piece, so the first time I went vegetarian, completely vegetarian, I was 11. We were driving back to Ohio, to Zanesville. And if you've ever driven to Ohio down 75, then you understand that you go through like Perrysburg, Bowling Green, like you go through all these places and they have a series of restaurants. So back then, if you remember, Wendy's had like the aluminum foil paper. And so we'd always stop. We'd get our waffle fries. We'd get our junior bacon cheeseburgers, hop back on the road. But this particular time, I was a vegetarian. And of all places, we stopped at McDonald's. They didn't have any fries. My mom was like, you got to eat something. They didn't have any chicken nuggets. And I'm like, no. Fish, no. They didn't have any of that. And I had to eat a hamburger. I got so sick. So sick, right? And so the type of mother that I had was that she was very, very supportive of me being my own individual. My dad supported.
How old are you at the time?
Then? Oh, I was 11 then.
Okay, so you were a kid, because that's the other thing, because I know people are probably watching this, and people may still feel like that. Like, what you mean? Like, your parents didn't honor that? You know what I'm saying? They may think you adult. It's like, kids, you know how stuff is. People look at a kid like, yeah, I'm a this. And like,
whatever. To be clear.
You're going to be eating. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not about to get up here. Child Protective Services ain't going to take you away because you just a vegetarian right now. I can already, all right. So now we get the context of the story. All right.
So at 11, very supportive of, okay, she wants to eat healthier. So I ran track. I tried to be a cheerleader. That didn't work out at all.
Okay.
I did basketball and I played volleyball. And
Okay.
so being physically active,
Was something that you were into.
that I was into. And so the food piece, my mom cooked meals every day. We rarely ate out anywhere. And so if we did, it may have been like Chinese food with the red door in Dearborn, Michigan Avenue. I don't know the name of them, but they had the best Chinese food back in the day. And so we never did like the fast food piece. And so, again, very supportive of it. But I got sick. The whole family vacation for me was ruined. I had a hamburger after not having any meat at all. But she was supporting that. She's like, well, you got to come back because I can't not let you eat. You got to eat. And so we had been on the road and I was no longer a vegetarian. However, when I turned 24, 2014. I'm sorry, 2004. 22. My life changed a little bit. I made some dietary changes and went back to that vegetarian lifestyle. That lasted for a little while, but
I mean, just even in the flex and go, what was their work? What did your dad do? What did your mom do?
my parents were business professionals. I prefer not to talk about my parents.
I got you. All
But
right.
business
Not bad.
professionals for sure, yeah.
Okay. All right. So within that, it's like just learning in business how they did things and being in this journey and how they connected. Brothers and sisters, you said you were the youngest. What was it like just as far as like as you talk about your creativity and sparking? That's why I ask usually like what did they do to see like what was your inspiration for creativity? Because usually we can pick that up from observation of looking and seeing what other people do.
I'll tell you, in terms, so I have, it's 5 of us in terms of children. But in terms of the creativity, so I got to the point where, I like information. And so I challenge information from time to time. Parents might see that as talking back. And when I would get in trouble, it was go do a book report. There was no popping me, anything like that. It's go do a book report. And we had a level of communication with each other.
With like so for that like okay just go do a book report like how are you picking the books, do you go to the library, do you just pick a
Yeah.
book that your parent did
Yeah,
they give
no.
you a book or could
Both.
it be anything
Both.
like
Both.
so you could pick the book
Yep, both. It would be.
so
we're
you
going to
could
the
like I
library.
could get in trouble for like watching too much TV and then I could pick a book that's like the benefits of children watching TV.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Mom's going to read the book too. And so because my mother read those books also, it was no getting away with just reading the back of the book and writing from that, no summarizing. I had to get down in there and read. And so she's always, both my parents, education first, education. Nobody can take it away from you. When you,
Okay.
The education piece was very, very important. Again, coming from the South where these things weren't allowed. Even though it was the 50s when they were coming up, there's still, remnants of that, of your education. People died because they learned you're going to do something with this. And so we did.
Okay.
And so when it came down to,
So what type of books and what type of book reports
I
was
don't
you writing?
remember. Look, I remember like Judy Blume books, right? What else did we have? My mother made sure that we stayed on top of our black books too. My dad also. So for example, I'm trying to think of a good one. There was this one that I recall titled "Let the Circle Be Unbroken," and
Let the Circle Be Unbroken. I remember
Yeah.
that book.
I don't recall the author. But that was the largest report that I had to do. That
Hilarious.
hard copy also.
And did you like for writing this like how old are you?
Oh, my mother started me writing early. I probably was writing stories at 4. Those weren't for punishment though.
I mean,
Those-
but I'm just saying, like, but to understand the whole process of like building a book report and
Yeah.
all of that, you just like assume that's probably maybe like 3rd grade work. I'm guessing.
Yeah, 3rd grade work. But so like, if I did something, let's say for example, I used to like
kid
to play in my
stuff.
mom's
whatever,
lipstick, right?
like yeah, kid stuff.
So
yeah.
it's I won't play in mom's lipstick. You go write that down. So now we're working on handwriting. Not only are we working on handwriting, we're working on spelling. We're working on staying within the line. So she was extremely smart with with how she raised us. Both of my parents, with how they raised us. Again, my dad was there. but I was a dad's girl because I was the youngest girl. So
Okay. I mean, most girls are dad's girls
Yeah.
and boys are mom's boy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because it's the understanding of more leeway. You know, any smart daughter knows that dad is probably not really gonna punish you that bad. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
And any smart son knows, yeah, I better run this through mom before I run it through dad, because dad gonna say no.
Right.
Mom probably gonna say yes. So you know, if you smart, you know that's the methodology that you should be applying. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
in this same journey, you talk about high school a little bit, just being active in athletics and other things, but you still have this mind for creativity.
Right.
Where are you pouring your creativity to in high school?
High school was traumatic for me, actually. My mother died when I was 13.
Wow, that's
And
heavy.
so,
Rest in peace and condolences.
thank you. I love my mom. She's one of my favorite ancestors. But it was traumatic. I was an adult in high school. I didn't have the same comfort as some of my peers, right? Like, I can tell this story now because it's so long ago and I don't think there's any sanctions against me or anything like that. But I literally forged my birth certificate and got a job. It was unique. So
How
again,
old were you when you did that?
I was 13. So my mother died when I was 13.
Where were you working at 13?
McDonald's.
Oh man.
I'm about to run it down for you. So I lived on the North End. I would get on the Woodward bus right there across from the Kenwood gas station. I would get up at 4 a.m. to get on the bus. By 4:56 is what time it crossed there. To get down to the Michigan Avenue in Shelby. To get to Inkster. To go to Robershot. To be in class by 8:30. High school was not fun. I did sports.
So being 13, all right, you look almost like 13 right now.
Oh,
So
thank
I
you.
mean,
Me
I
too.
assume that you I assume like I'm pretty sure the manager knew that you was not of age. You know what I'm saying?
didn't. They did
You
not.
look like a baby right now.
I looked
They
the same.
probably just could care, you know. I mean, as a person that's worked in the what no, they don't. It's not fast food. The quick service food restaurant industry. You know, sometimes you just need a person that's more willing, and usually the younger people, if you ever work those shifts, are more willing because they look at it differently than a grown person. But 13 at McDonald's, I can only imagine like the thought process of so much going on in and around you, because if you ever have these jobs, usually it's like like I say, it's the young person that's happy to have a job. It's just like the McDonald's commercial. Calvin got a job. That was you. It's like, yeah, I can get a check and make some money. Then it's the young person that's been there a while that's like, man, I hate this damn job.
Oh,
Then
but it
it's
was-
like then it's the person that's been working there long enough that feels like they should be in management but ain't management, so they're disgruntled for another reason. Then it's a person that, you know, God bless my people of the type of opportunities I provide. A person that ain't got every cup in the cupboard. You know what I'm saying? But they're willing to do the stuff because these restaurants, like, it's stuff that it's just like, you know, cleaning out the grease trap and stuff like that. It's like, it's a person that's hired like that. Like, and this is some of where it's the flow is. And you just need a person that's going to get some hours. And usually that younger person is more willing because they're more appreciative of the opportunity.
Got it. No, we have real bosses though. So like because it's right in Inkster, there were other teenagers that worked there, but the adults didn't play. No, they didn't play. And thank God the owner was so dope because they did find out. Now, let's be clear. They got in trouble. They got fined.
I mean, I'm looking at you now. I mean, and I know you think that you look like you were an adult at 13.
No, but listen.
There's
listen,
no
you gotta-
way.
No, you got to
I've seen LeBron James at 13, and you still would have been able to tell. And if you can't tell from a person looking, it's kind of like when dudes be like, no, but I don't know. She kind of.
I'm going to show you a picture.
Because
I'm going to show you a picture. I look the exact
it's less
same.
the picture, but it's more also like the attitude, the development, it's a certain attitude when interacting with younger people that you usually can be like, no. And if it's I don't know, this is just for future reference for any person wondering in a gut feeling. If it's I don't know, that means you probably know, but you need to feel the staff and these positions you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I did a pretty good job on that birth certificate. I ain't giving no clues on how
That
to do it
alone
now.
is a big sign because
But
usually people gonna come in with a state ID or a driver's license instead
nope.
of a birth certificate.
I had ID, but at the time all you needed was your a school signature. I'm telling you, I finessed it.
I mean, I hear what you're saying,
I
but I'm
finessed it
just telling
good.
you. I mean, hey, we can live in this world, and I'm just telling you, just anybody with a gut, like where your ID at? You know what I'm saying? Like I remember my first job at Taco Bell. Shout out to Taco Bell in the basement of Wayne State University.
I
You know
used
what
to
I'm saying?
love
And I
going
remember
there.
what I had to go through, and my
Yeah.
damn state ID was, they took it, they took a copy of it.
Yeah.
That I'm coming in with the birth certificate, and there was a couple people that did,
I'm
and
telling
my manager knew.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this then, because I don't know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say I don't know what they know, but they definitely let it get through until the next year when it was time to do them taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They came back and was like, "We got fined. Your social security number came back, and you're a minor."
You're a child.
Yeah, it was, but the cool thing is that we had a conversation, and so again, I had to grow up overnight. When my mother died, I literally grew up overnight.
Meaning, like you were tasked with the responsibility. Why
Well, I
did
had
you?
adults around me, but see, my mother, again, she developed me and my siblings in such a way that we knew what to do and what not to do. So we needed very minimal management, right? Like, so now there's new adults coming in to parent. My dad's there, but my dad works. So now he became a widow of all these children by himself, right? So he has 3 children. My oldest 2 siblings were adults at the time when my mother died. But now he has 3 children that he had help raising. So in this space, that became well, mom did this, 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 even though dad can still do this, this, this. Mom took care of this. And I wanted things, you know. Yeah, that's another day for another podcast. But the development in which was presented, the responsibilities, it was like, yeah, you now are responsible for getting yourself up. Like those little things that children take for granted, a parent getting you up, I now had to get myself up, which wasn't hard.
Well, I mean, if you was
But
waking up at 4 a.m, hell no, it ain't hard.
well, then at the time, so there's a step that goes missing from there also. So we were living in Inkster, but then we moved to Detroit.
Yeah,
So
after the passing of your mother,
yeah.
I'm guessing because more of the family is that way. It probably other reasons.
Yeah,
and
lots of other
everything.
reasons.
Yeah.
But in growing up, it was like my perspective of life. Like, if you think about Bambi, right? When Bambi loses its mom, or you think about Fox and the Hound, when the fox loses its mom. Literally, although I was not abandoned without adults or people around me that loved me, I was a motherless child. Like, there's no other way to cut it. And so maybe for those that are listening that have experienced that, it's like something that they can understand or felt if they weren't grown before their parents' transition. Thankfully, I was not adult before my mom transitioned, but when she did, it was like all these responsibilities came up. I still had the responsibilities. I still was athletic, but then there came adults. A lot of adults came in and you won't do this, you're going to be pregnant, you won't go to school. Like all these various things came into play. And it's like, no, my mama didn't go for that. My mama didn't go for that. And she didn't go for that. So it's not going to happen because she's not here. So it became now I got to watch who's around me type thing, you know. Thank God there's no predators in my family that came for me in any way, shape, or form, or my siblings. And so sometimes when people lose their parents, they have to live with going through those things. I didn't have that. It was really focused on your school. I won't say I was a bad teenager, but I absolutely took advantage of some of those freedoms.
Well, obviously, did at 13 working at McDonald's.
You know.
So past high school, where's your mindset at?
Oh, past high school, college was fun. College was a ball for me.
Where did you go?
I went to Eastern.
Okay, did you
There you
like? So you say you really liked Eastern, and Eastern, as you know, you're another black graduate. I don't know what Eastern was doing, like in some era. I would say like the late '90s through like that 2000s era. It just attracted so many black students.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the Navy, actually. I really wanted to go to the military.
And what drew you over to Eastern?
Oh, I had terrible grades in high school because I didn't care.
So it seems like you would have went to the Navy with terrible grades, but what drew you to Eastern instead of going to the Navy?
I had another opportunity in my family's input of the education piece. My mom went to Eastern too. That was no reason for me to go there. I really wanted to go to UCLA or down to Jackson State if I had to go to college. And so Eastern was the closest to home. That was pretty much it. They gave me the opportunity. They gave me an acceptance letter.
And what was what was that experience as far as like there on campus and really tapping in and saying like, okay, all right, let me take this. Like, what was your journey in school there? Because you said like in high school, your grades was like not there. Because I mean, in my mind, and I know you was on it, but working at McDonald's and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? And being grown. Now, what was your flow towards academics in college?
Academics in college were, I didn't think that I was smarter than the system, but I felt like, why am I taking these basic classes? Put me where I need to be in terms to learn my career, which was journalism at the time. What am I don't need this math. I don't need this English. I've already done this in high school. And English, actually, communication is a strong point for me. And so English was easy. I did journalism in high school. I enjoyed science. Didn't necessarily like chemistry or math, but I loved geometry. And so I'm like, that's math. And so when I got to college, it was like, okay, I know this, I know this, I know this. This should be easy. It was just a lot of papers. So I became skilled at writing last-minute papers. I became skilled at researching. Very, very, very great researcher when it came to journalism. So I took my academics seriously. I had the
For
dean.
the classes you were interested in?
All of them, because I was paying for it out of my own pocket.
Oh, so even the math, you felt like you didn't know why you were doing it, but you did it.
Yeah, I paid for my own college experience, and so it was a different ball game at the time. So math was a requirement. You know, you have to take this prereq. I didn't test out where they thought that I should have tested out at, but I hated math. I understood that I can count my money. What more do you want? I could do this. I know how to measure stuff, and so it later became that physics became one of my favorite topics in college. Chemistry, also a favorite topic. Things that matter in life became my favorite topics in college. And so I gained a lot of experiences. I worked a lot of different jobs. I was a barista. I used to work at Hot Topic. I didn't fit the Hot Topic culture at all, but it was fun working there. I worked at Bally's when it was open in Ann Arbor. I had a lot of cool jobs, Mongolian barbecue. Like, I was really, really in the trenches in college.
So at this point in that journey, indefinitely, I'm thinking the vegetarianism again. Where are you at and where's your mindset with health and health works and things like that?
I was lifting weights big time. So weightlifting, although, you know, I got a history in yoga, weightlifting is my go-to. Running, and it comes from trauma. Let's be clear. I used to enjoy those really, really strenuous
And rigorous exercises.
Yeah.
And when you say weightlifting, what are you? Squats,
Bench press, squats,
bench press?
deadlifts.
Okay.
Oh yeah, all of
So
that.
it was like the football team and you in there, bam, going at it.
Yeah, I used to run distances. I used to just run. I used to enjoy running.
Okay.
So yeah, stuff like those in college. I didn't necessarily focus on my wellness in terms of food the way that I do now. At the time, college student pizza. You know, pizza was it. McDonald's was it. One of my Abe's Coney Island up in Ipsy. Those are my favorite places, and so I didn't really take the food serious, but I did remain physically active.
And I'm guessing like lifting and then also just being younger, your metabolism is at a different pace and rate and everything like that. When did it hit that like, okay, it's something to more of this health and wellness? You spent some time working at Bally's. What was that connection to recenter in that space?
Having a track and field background, working at Bally's and being physically active, it was just like a way of life at that point. I had never stopped since I graduated from high school. So when I graduated, I was bench pressing 135. And so when I got to college, I'm like this swole girl, right? Like young, but kind of strong. And so I just kept it up. I didn't stop. I probably became more relaxed on my exercising when I graduated college.
But then when does the connection for more of the health and learning the herbs and
Okay.
the different vegetables and balancing out, because as they always say, you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet.
True.
Like just straight up. I mean, I don't know who got to tell you that. I'm telling you this. It's not like I made this up. This is what anyone will tell you, meaning that like you could be in the gym every day going 1,000% strong, but then if you know, eat whatever the hell you want, especially as your metabolism changes, you're not gonna. It's no way. Though the exercise is very key. You want to get the blood flowing. You want to get circulation. You want to make sure that here go the number one reason why I like exercising. You want to make sure that if you need it, you can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But diet is truly really that anchor in that. What was that connection to really tap into more of that? And now you also like kind of, you know, a little bit more in chemistry now. You have some other skill sets. What was the tick to be like, okay, I'm going to dive more into this?
I got sick. And so I didn't know I was sick though. I actually have been sick since my first menstrual cycle. Since my menstrual cycle started at 11 was when I got my first period. And I had painful periods. But it's genetic. And so having cramps was just the thing that was quote unquote normal, and it's not.
And that's something like, I mean, I'm a man, so just through dating, I mean, I've heard that, and you know, as a man, I don't know a lot in that, you know, but it's definitely said to the point where, like, I remember I had a big debate with a girlfriend before, where she was like, I'm on birth control because of my periods,
Right.
and my periods are so strong. And I was like, that don't make no sense. So then I start calling like my cousins. I start calling a lot of women I know.
Did
like,
you
does this make
apologize to
sense?
her?
After I went through making all these phone calls, and I was like, damn, I guess there's some doctors that do prescribe birth control as a way to deal with painful periods.
Yeah.
It threw me off like ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
It definitely threw me off. And like, this is just like the dumbfoundedness. I mean, this is like, I don't know, I'm like 25 or something at the time, but I was like, for real. And then then just learning the arcs of like how she would deal with that, like hot water bottles and bathing in different ways. And like just the, you know, having a better understanding of like, okay, it's some different stuff going on here. You know?
I'm so proud of you. That's mature of you. Not at this point.
Oh, I guess. I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm me, but you know what I'm saying? But I have an understanding which I mean, and I guess the birth control discussion could be a whole nother discussion of the impacts it may have, but
I'll break it down for you.
I don't know, but let's, you know, share.
Yeah, I wasn't sexually active. That was an adult thing. However, when I had to when they recommended birth control for me, I was embarrassed. I'm like, I'm not having sex.
Because so you had the response that I was thinking to myself,
I'm
because
like,
she was saying, because that's really what the discussion was. She was like, well, I've been on birth control since I was 15. And I was thinking to myself, like, damn, you was getting it in early. And she was like, I wasn't having sex. And I was like, this was prescribed for you?
Before I started having sex, I absolutely was on birth control. And it helped. However, it caused me so much emotional turmoil, and my brain's not fully developed. I'm still a child. And so the emotions that came along with the birth control, the what do you call it? Hormone regulation. I didn't understand it at the time. And so as time moved forward, we'll go to 27. At the time, my boyfriend was overseas and traveling. And I started spotting in between. I'm like, oh crap, I'm pregnant, but how could this be? Because I ain't seen him in months. And so like I'm panicking again. So I go to the hospital, go through the steps. And as they're doing an ultrasound or pelvic exam, I'm seeing like these colors light up. So I'm looking back and I'm asking questions. And she's like, you know, the doctor will talk to you. So now I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Come to find out it was uterine fibroids. And they were hell. They were absolute hell. Before I dissolved them, I no longer live with them. But before I dissolved them, it was hell to experience. And so I'm researching now, what do I do to get rid of these things? Because now I'm pressing on my stomach like, oh, wait, what's this? What's that? So just being, self-exploratory. And I started learning that there are certain herbs that I can take to help, or certain things that I need to remove from my diet. And before I got here, I had a slice of pizza, but I know that cheese makes me mucus-like. Like I can hear it in myself now. But I removed the dairy from my diet. Nothing against the dairy industry. We'll say that here. Do what you need to do. But for myself, I began to remove the sugar from my diet, the breads, the things that cause mucus into my body. I removed them.
Like Dr. Sebi right here.
I miss him. I wish I would have had the chance to be an in-person student. But I absolutely followed the Dr. Sebi diet. I went alkaline in my diet because fibroids are tumors. And so I needed to shrink them. I needed to understand what caused them. Again, I used to eat terrible. I worked out.
So you were like what I said, you were active, working out, and you've been active.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. And I guess this goes into like black people in medicine and doctors in America have definitely not the best relationship.
Yeah.
When it comes to black women in the medical profession, it's even more so of a very tragic and traumatic relationship. And there's so many, like even like infant mortality, like the book Medical Apartheid. I mean, if you ever have time, check that out. But a lot of information in reference to this, because I always was thinking to myself, like, are like, is this just common practice? Is it one of those things where, like, oftentimes, because what's usually said, even me sometimes when I'll go with, been at a doctor visit with black women, it's almost like they're not feeling heard or understood,
Right.
and being dismissed for what's going on. Because it's like, I know my body and da-da-da, and the doctor's like, yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Take this. Do you think that, like, something like that, like even at a young age, and it's hard to go back to that time,
Oh, I absolutely remember.
you remember, like, okay, this feels kind of odd, and then you share with the doctor, and the doctor's like, no, you just tripping.
Absolutely. I have had some terrible, not all of them, but I've had some terrible experiences with doctors. Again, this girl, no mother here by her side to talk her through these things. It's kind of scary. It's as a matter of fact, it's really unfortunate that professionals in that position would prefer to write a prescription than to help me resolve the issue. And at one point, I would get really bad nausea. And the medicine that they prescribed for me, I wouldn't fill the prescription because it was a multi-use medicine that covers more than just nausea. And so reading through the usage or what it's used for, and this is something that a lot of people, I want you to pay attention to this, is understanding all of the uses of this medication, because you may be treating something that's not wrong just for this one symptom. And so...
So wait, I want you to drive deeper into that point so people kind of get the full scope of it. Meaning, like here's a classic one that I think is a funny thing that people will know. Like, okay, Viagra. Viagra's like what is that? Viagra technically is supposed to like uprate your heart. Like it's supposed to jumpstart your heart. But one of the symptoms connected to taking it, for a man, your blood flow will, get it going again. When they saw that this is what the medicine was doing, it was like, oh, well, then we can move it over here. But technically, so if you got heart conditions and you popping some blue boys, as the people say in the streets, you are taking a step risking your life.
Yep.
So I just want to, you know what I'm saying? So I want you to kind of drill down more on that whole concept of like, okay, this medication may deal with these 10 things, but it can deal with these 10 things, but it also has these other 10 or 25 impacts.
One particular medication, and I don't know if I'm allowed to speak on this because I don't want to beef with the pharmaceutical
Well, just say the
companies.
medication.
But this particular anti-nausea, specifically anti-nausea medication, they use this medication to treat for nausea, but they also use it on persons with schizophrenia, that have also been diagnosed with other forms of psychosis. And so when I would take the medicine, the nausea would go away, but I feel happy, like really happy. And I would be like, well, dang, this is cool, but I've never been one to fill prescriptions when it came to anything that I didn't need. For example, they'd write me prescriptions for narcotics. I didn't need those. I didn't need them. So even though I had pain,
now I'm a slow person in reference to this.
I'm gonna go.
Narcotic. What makes one medicine a narcotic and one not?
As an opiate, they would prescribe me opiates. And I wouldn't take them. I would not fill the prescription because a Motrin 200 would work just fine if I caught the nausea in time. So it was like a person living with high blood pressure or hypertension or diabetes, they understand that it's a numbers game. And so having a balance of their numbers. So when my cycle would come, I would get nauseous. But if I got nauseous, I would have to take the pain pill before the nausea kicked in so that I wouldn't spit it back up. Just naturally coming up on its own. And so
that's like your body telling you ain't supposed to be having this.
You ain't supposed to have it in there. You ain't supposed to have it in there. And so once I began to research what the anti-nausea medicine was, I was like, no, I don't want this. I don't have any issues. Like, I don't have any issues with mental health. I have nausea. And so I began to then dig deeper. And so I'm so grateful that I live a life that is healthful and that I don't take prescription medications for things. And so I've always been big on not being placed on medication.
And that's one of the key things that usually exists in our community. Are there times that you think medication should be taken?
Yeah, I think that Western and Eastern medicine are both wonderful forms of medication, but sometimes we need a little help. Right?
Okay, and I just wanted you to say that because also it's going to be somebody on here like, see, I told you I don't need to take this.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to be somebody like, hey, man, nah, you need your pills.
Yeah, but being informed.
They may not necessarily need them.
Yes. If you have been prescribed medication for mental health, please take your medication. I'm going to encourage you to get some vitamin D also, because if you're in Michigan, if you're in the gloomy states right now where there's no sunshine, get you some vitamin D3 to make sure that you're keeping it going. Because, and mental health, we could have another conversation about that, but we want to make sure that if you're prescribed medication, take your medication for your mental health. It's so important. Please.
So in this, as you see, like, Detroit is different, drives different places. And stuff.
I like it.
Now we here. We at where we at.
Okay.
And within where we at, we're at with Hope Village and what you do in Hope Village. And you're supporting a lot of people on their health journeys. What is it like? What's the support? And as I always say, our community's really battling, as they say, the big three. And hypertension's in me and many of my family members and everything, even the good old gout and stuff. Mm-hmm. But hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. Those three are big in our community, especially when we think about Black men. And we were even having that discussion, like, what do you think would be the reason for a Black man? It's dudes that ain't seen a white coat in 15, 25 years. You know what I'm saying?
White coat syndrome.
So, and I mean, it's rightfully so, because the medical industry has not, like many institutions, been an ally of our community. Right, you know what I'm saying? Our natural disposition towards, like, one second, y'all giving us something. Like if anything comes out and it's like, we're going to give it to Black people first. People are like, oh, no, what y'all trying to do? Because the relationship with institutions in America and the Black community is not a good relationship.
It's true. It's true.
So us having fear of institutions, and I know a lot of my medical people watching.
Hey, y'all.
You know what I'm saying? And I got mad love. Health advocates, I think it's all a relationship, but you also need to know the context in where this comes from.
Yeah.
So your work in Hope Village, what has it been like? And you now having that full context of your personal journey.
Right.
And then you've even shared like being present with your grandmothers, but that personal journey speaks even more volumes of knowing that there are certain remedies, there are certain things people can do, but what has it been like in Hope Village advocating for health?
All right, let me turn to the camera. I love you, Hope Village. It has been amazing, actually, to be welcomed into a community that I was not raised in, to be trusted to bring resources into a community. It's a lot of good pressure, very, very good pressure, because it helps me to understand that my learning is not in vain, my experiences are not in vain, and the work that I do does make a difference. And so in the Hope Village community, when I first started as a community health advocate, I didn't know that I was already doing the work. I didn't have a title yet. And so being here, I mean, so many success stories. I'm a pretty private person, so I don't want to put anybody else on blast or put their information out there. But I've seen some amazing people transform their lives by taking it more seriously.
And sometimes the seriousness, let me say this, just in my journey, because people like now it's like, oh, you losing weight and stuff like that.
Congratulations.
I got on my big sweater. I'm not that's never really ever been my goal. My goal is always just like, let's stick to what things go. So like some of my keys, like I tell people, like drinking the right amount of water. It's probably a lot more water than you think you're supposed to drink. But sometimes it's just awareness. Hopping on that scale. Actually taking your blood pressure, like the awareness, because that's, and that's the white coat syndrome that I hope most of us get over. It's like, just at least know what's going on.
Absolutely. A basic physical.
Don't want to, you don't want your diagnosis to come from the emergency room, like a lot of our communities.
Can I talk on that for a second? Emergency room. So please, if you go to the emergency room, you have a situation and you don't have a primary care physician, there should be a caseworker there. If you don't have insurance, you can ask them for help with getting Medicaid or for getting insurance, right? There are services available. Do your absolute best to not use the emergency room as your primary care physician.
Okay, now you got to break down what a PCP is for everybody.
Your primary care physician, PCP, is a person, your doctor, that you would go to for your regular exams, your annual screenings, the person that you confide your health business to. Right now, Kari could be my primary care physician, and I'm giving him the rundown of the last 20 years of my life, of what I've experienced, what my family has experienced, like my dad, my grandmother, aunts and uncles, the closest people to me, the heart health, the diabetes. I'm giving him all the information so that he can help me be the best person that I can be in my health. For example, let's say someone passes out. They go to the emergency room. They ask, do you have a doctor that you see regularly? The person will say, no, I don't have a person that I go see. Do you have insurance? That's something that they're going to ask you up front anyway. But I don't have insurance to follow up with the doctor. So now they're going to say, we need to get you to this medical center to see a doctor. That particular medical center may or may not have one doctor to see you. They may have more than one doctor covering that location. But the person that you see, that you follow up with, that's going to be your primary care physician. You're going to let them know you're in the hospital. You experienced this. So let's say that the description that what you went in for is your blood sugar was too high. You got diabetes, type 2. And so now you've built a relationship with this doctor. You're going to ask this doctor questions. They're going to they should provide a plan of action for your care on the steps that you need to take, what type of medicines you need to take, what's going to be the dosage of this medication. Do you have a support system? So these are all things that your primary care physician should be taking care of, following up with you, be it in person or via telehealth, over the phone or via internet, so that there is someone other than your family that knows what's going on with you. You have medical care. This is why I say Western medicine does matter, because these could be life-saving medications.
And to that point, let me give it in a Kari detail as we get really closer to the end. We in Detroit.
Yeah.
You know you got a car.
Yeah.
It's just like your car. You know you got that shop you've been going to for forever because you got an old school, and it's like they know everything that's going on with that shop. And if you take that car out of town to, I don't know, let's say a trip to Ohio, let's use that. You go down to, you drive to Columbus yourself. Something happens on the road. As much as you're going to drive into that new shop, the first thing you're going to do before you even drive into that new shop, you call in the people that you know. Mm-hmm. And you like, hey, man, last time you did this, you did that. So I assume it's not going to be this. It shouldn't be that problem. Because if it's this problem, I'm coming back to you. What's going on with this and all of that? Like your PCP has a record of like your journey in the arc. When I turned 30, I was like, okay, let me go on and find that PCP that I really want. And I'm glad that Dr. Paul Thomas with Plum Health, which is direct primary care, which you can pay out of pocket. You know, I want to say it's like $75 a month, but
that's wonderful.
But it's really cool, and I love my relationship I built. And it took a while to get to that point, because I've also had other PCPs I was seeing, but now for so long, and now just having that relationship and that history, if something are to happen to me, I at least have charts, I have checkups, I have blood work going back to say, okay, this is different, this is abnormal. Yeah. And me and Dr. Paul for years, we always debate the whole like, hey, I'm black, so it's certain stresses that I'm gonna have, you know, and it's just real. Like, I mean, my blood pressure fluctuates based on what's going on as an entrepreneur. If I get stressed out, as much as I'm cool in certain spaces and places, if things are awry, my blood pressure is gonna be through the roof. If things are more chill, then I can be more chill. You know, different times of the day where things are. But I think it has impacts on everything else, because the mind and body are so interconnected. But if you don't have that record, and then you just go in just like that car that you love. Yeah. If you just take that car in and you just trust this shop in Ohio, and that shop in Ohio may be doing their best job at assessing what's going on. But if you don't have any type of record of other work that's been done, then that shop in Ohio is going to start just taking stabs at, okay, it could be this. Yeah. It could be that.
Let me add this. Don't try to fix it yourself either.
Oh, self-diagnosis?
You know, so again, we know ourselves, right? But when I say don't try to fix it yourself, you made a very valid point that anything could pop off right now. Yeah. Your blood pressure is going to go sky high. Yeah. But it's in that isolated moment. And so let's say, for example, that a person has been taken or had been diagnosed with hypertension, high blood pressure, and they no longer have hypertension, high blood pressure, but they still have the medication. And something just popped off, and now their numbers are sky high. And so now, I got this blood pressure medicine. Let me go take this. They don't need it, but they took it. So now they can become hypotensive, which is too low. Their blood pressure is too low. Yeah.
And that can be a problem as well.
Yeah. The primary care physician is like their best friend. Or their holistic doctor for those that, you know, want to clash with it. But having that person, that doctor, to call, that relationship, to check in, hey, this is messing up right now. As you said, the mechanic. What do I do? You got to have that communication. Have a nurse, at least, nurse practitioner, someone to call to say, hey, what do I need to do because my numbers are registering high right now? What do I do?
Now, I'm going to last, and then also another shout out. Shout out Huda Clinic and everything they do over there. They're big too, as far as like it is a clinic inside of our community. It's like on the other side of Hope Village. I still think it's in the square, but it's right next to the Muslim Center off of West Davison, down the street from the Repertory Theater. It's a clinic that provides health screenings and other health support for people in the community, specifically for a lot of people of the Muslim community, that wouldn't, you know, that don't feel comfortable, that don't feel understood, don't feel, you know, really heard as well. You know, so I definitely want to give that shout out. But with that, this leaves the last question before we get to the classic Detroit is Difference of the other thing that does present itself is, you know, as people age, they end up usually like the position I'm in with some of my family, like you end up with somebody taking you on some of these journeys and things like that. What type of mindfulness do you suggest for a person that is going and walking this path and helping in caretaking for somebody through medical, you know, and sometimes it's people like, it don't even necessarily have to be agents. I done had like some homies, like some of my homegirls, need some support here or there, at my age, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what's the right presence of mind? What should people know in for providing that caretaking support?
Be patient. It's not about you. And when I say it's not about you, self-care is first primary all the way through for both parties. But understand that you're not in this person's physical body. You have no idea what they're experiencing. They could be dizzy and not telling you, but just want you around, so they're tolerating you there. Or because you care for them, you could be being impatient with them, and they simply don't have the energy to keep up at your speed. Or they may not want to eat. They may not feel like eating. They may not be able to tell you what's wrong. Let's say someone's having a diabetic, they're going into a coma. We don't talk enough about that. And it's very, very real. Someone could slip into a diabetic coma. They can't communicate with you what's going on because they stuck. You've got to be patient. You've got to understand and learn this person like they're your child. Understand the things that they don't tell you they may be experiencing. So it's like learning this disease, this illness, as if you had it, and then treating this person as if they're the most precious person to you.
Which leads to another thing, because that's usually one of the biggest things, especially in families. It's like why grandma ain't tell me, or why uncle ain't tell me, or why they ain't tell me. It's almost like you're right. It becomes like a me. If you going through this, you should have let me know. And da, 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 da. And you're right. It's
Just
their
show
journey.
up. Just show up.
But how do you find out, and how do you go on this journey of discovering? What are the sources you look to? If it, because there's so many different things that do exist. I mean, we talked about the three, but I mean, it's dementia, it's Alzheimer's, it's thyroids is, like you say, that's very
body,
present.
the endocrine system.
Lupus is,
Autoimmune,
how do you, what places do you source finding the information?
Starting with your doctor, one. But so I don't mind sharing this. I have a holistic doctor, but I also have a primary care physician that I never see. I see them once a year, so my insurance
stays active.
Yeah. But I don't think I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I think it's a wonderful thing. But the brother Asa Lockett actually helped me heal my fibroids. Yeah. I don't talk about it often in spaces, but the brother really gave me a blueprint on how to shrink and dissolve my fibroids. So I go see my holistic doctors. I get the diagnosis from the Western medicine. I go see my natural doctors. So we're going to find the herbs. We're going to find the cause. We're going to find the cause first. They're going to find the herbs, what's going on with my body, to find out how to fix it if anything ever comes up. Even the smallest cold, ginger, lemon, honey, I'm on it. I'm taking rest. Rest is so important. We don't give ourselves enough time to rest. One time for the NAP Ministries with Rest as Resistance, great book for those that need rest. Understand that you need your rest. You need your physical activity. I do a lot of meditation and prayer, connecting with the higher source, higher power, God, so that I can stay on this earth as long as I can to do the job that I'm here to do. But being mindful, and it's really hard to trust people sometimes, but being vulnerable enough to say, I'm experiencing this and I need help, for the person that's living with this chronic illness. Being able to sit still and say, okay, I'm not going to be beat by this either. I'm going to learn what it is, how it affects my body. For example, we have a Healthy Heart Self-Monitoring Blood Pressure program, which suggests that persons use less sodium in their diet. So I did the program with them. I lowered my blood pressure to a healthier number than what it was. So I got down in the program with them. So if I'm helping someone with their hypertension, I'm eating the same foods that they are. At first, it was like a suffering, because saltless food wasn't all that good. But if you've ever been to Jamaica, then you know that ital is vital, as they say. Peace out to Dave in Jamaica. But eating foods that are low in sodium, I did that. And so the people that were in the program had improvement. They were proud of themselves. I got down in the dirt, in the mud with them, as we say.
That's what's up.
So do that. If a person that you love is living with diabetes, don't bring home the chocolate chip walnut cookies and eat them there. Eat them outside the house. Don't bring it to them.
That's real.
Yeah, if your it's like, look at it like it's an addiction. Someone's going through counseling for substance abuse. I pray to God that you're not giving your person the substance that they're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
So don't go giving them white sugar. Take them honey. Take them agave. In terms of salt, finding other spices. I'm heavy on the onion powder and the garlic powder when it comes to salt replacement. Learning new ways to actually cook your food or to prepare the food for them so that you like it. It doesn't have to be bad. I was once a processed vegan, as I call it. Processed vegan food is terrible for you. Learning how to read the nutrition labels on the back, understanding what you're putting into your body. I did all this. I did the work many times. I didn't get it right the first couple times, but I continued to practice. So don't abuse yourself mentally or physically for not getting it right. Let's say you have diabetes and you're not supposed to be eating German chocolate cake on Thanksgiving or Christmas, but you do. Okay, cut that portion in half and forgive yourself.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So with that being said, thank you so much. This was a cool interview, and we'll definitely get you back.
Thank you.
Hope
Thank
Village
you.
Representing.
I appreciate it. Can I add one more thing?
Throw it out there.
December 16th, Saturday, from 12 p.m. until 3 p.m., we will be at the Andy Art Center on 3000 Finkel Avenue, learning about controlling your numbers, knowing your diabetes, salt and cardiovascular risk, as well as Asa Lockett speaking. And then on Tuesdays, we have Rebecca Steele at the Parkman Branch Detroit Public Library. She will be speaking on how to reverse aging.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to share that those are things happening in the community right now. And thank you for this time. Appreciate it.
I got you. Hang around older people. I'm just messing with you.
Yes.
Be the young person in the group.
I am.
Peace.
Peace.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.